The research station sat quiet under the pale moonlight, its metallic structures reflecting a soft glow against the dark mountain landscape. Dr. Yoon Ji-eun was reviewing medical logs when a sudden burst of static interrupted the calm evening. The communication system crackled to life. A distant alarm began to pulse, its urgent rhythm breaking the silence. Ji-eun's hands moved quickly, her fingers dancing across the holographic screens. Something was approaching the station's outer perimeter. Outside, a damaged spacecraft tumbled through the atmosphere. Its metallic hull was scorched and torn, leaving a trail of smoke and sparkling debris across the night sky. The craft moved erratically, spinning and lurching like a wounded animal fighting against inevitable descent. Commander Park Hyun-woo's voice echoed through the station's speakers. Unidentified spacecraft detected. All personnel prepare for potential emergency protocol. Ji-eun grabbed her medical kit. She had trained for extraordinary scenarios, but nothing could truly prepare her for what was about to happen. Her heart raced with a mixture of professional curiosity and genuine concern. The spacecraft crashed approximately 2 kilometers from the research station. The impact created a massive crater, sending dust and small rocks flying in every direction. Broken pieces of alien technology scattered across the rocky terrain, still burning from atmospheric entry. Station security teams were first to approach the crash site. Their protective suits shimmered under portable searchlights, scanning the wreckage for any signs of survivors. The first team reported back with tension in their voices. "We have a living entity, requesting immediate medical support." Ji-eun was already preparing. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, gathering specialized medical equipment designed for potential extraterrestrial biological encounters. Each tool was carefully selected, each movement calculated. When they brought the injured alien into the medical bay, Ji-eun realized this was unlike anything she had ever seen. The being was female, with a complex biological structure that seemed both fragile and remarkably resilient. Her body was covered in a translucent membrane that pulsed with an inner light, revealing intricate internal systems completely different from human anatomy. Multiple fractures were visible. Strange liquid, possibly blood or some equivalent, leaked from several deep wounds. The alien's breathing was labored, each breath a struggle against what seemed like immense pain. Ji-eun noticed something unique. Despite severe injuries, the alien remained conscious. Her eyes, large, multifaceted and reflecting colors humans couldn't normally perceive, tracked every movement in the medical bay. "Can you understand me?" Ji-eun asked softly, knowing communication might be impossible. To her surprise, the alien made a sound. It wasn't speech as humans knew it, but a complex series of clicks and low vibrations that seemed to carry meaning. The medical scanners began collecting data, attempting to translate the alien's biological communication signals. Commander Park watched from a secure observation room. "What are her chances?" he asked through the communication system. Ji-eun's response was immediate and confident. "I'll do everything possible." The alien's body temperature was dropping. Her complex respiratory system was failing. Standard human medical protocols would be useless. Ji-eun would need to improvise, to think beyond conventional medical understanding. She activated the station's advanced xenobiological medical systems. Nano-reconstructive technology began scanning the alien's cellular structure, searching for ways to stabilize her condition. Each second was critical. The alien's gaze remained fixed on Ji-eun. There was something in that look, not just pain, but a profound sense of vulnerability. Two entirely different species, connected in this moment of life and death. Outside, the mountain wind howled. Inside the sterile medical bay, a battle for survival was just beginning. One human doctor, one injured alien, and a moment that would potentially change everything humans understood about life beyond their world. Ji-eun took a deep breath. Her hands were steady. Her mind was focused. The real work was about to begin. Though medical bay hummed with strange energy. Machines blinked and chirped, monitoring the alien's fragile condition. Dr. Yoon Ji-eun studied the holographic displays. her eyes moving quickly between complex biological readings. Standard medical protocols suggested letting the alien die. Her species was unknown, her biological structure completely alien. The risk of intervention was massive. One wrong move could contaminate the entire research station or cause unexpected reactions. But Ji-eun saw more than just biological data. She saw a living being fighting to survive. The alien's cellular structure was unlike anything in human medical records. Her body had multiple redundant systems, each working independently, yet interconnected in ways human biology could never understand. Where a human would have organs, she had fluid-like networks that shifted and adapted. Ji-eun realized traditional medical treatments would fail. She needed something radical, something that pushed the boundaries of current medical technology. She activated the station's most advanced nano-reconstruction system. Tiny machines, smaller than human cells, began to analyze the alien's biological composition. Each nanite was programmed with adaptive learning algorithms, capable of making instant decisions based on changing biological conditions. The first attempt failed. The nanites couldn't integrate with the alien's complex cellular structure. They dissolved, leaving no trace of their intervention. Ji-eun didn't stop. She modified the programming, introducing more flexible interaction protocols. She was writing medical code in real time, creating solutions that had never existed before. Commander Park watched from the observation room. "This is madness," he muttered. "We're risking everything." But Ji-eun understood something deeper. This wasn't just about saving an individual. This was about expanding human understanding of life itself. Hours passed. The alien's condition remained critical. Her breathing became more irregular, her internal systems showing signs of complete breakdown. Any human medical expert would have declared her beyond saving. Ji-eun introduced a new series of nanites. These were different. They were designed to learn, to adapt, to understand rather than simply repair. Instead of forcing human medical concepts onto an alien biology, these nanites would first comprehend, then heal. Slowly, something remarkable began to happen. The nanites started creating bridges between the alien's damaged cellular networks. They didn't repair using human biological concepts, but instead learned the alien's own healing language. It was like watching a complex translation happening at a microscopic level. The alien's body began to respond. Her damaged membrane started to seal. Internal fluid systems that had been disrupted began to realign. Her breathing became more stable. Ji-eun watched in amazement. She was witnessing something unprecedented, a true cross-species medical miracle. The station's medical AI began generating reports. Each data point was revolutionary. This wasn't just medical treatment. This was a breakthrough in understanding how life could exist and heal across different biological platforms. Commander Park approached Ji-eun. "How is she surviving?" Ji-eun smiled. "We're learning her language of survival, not forcing our own." The alien's eyes flickered. For the first time since her arrival, she seemed aware. Not just surviving, but conscious. Her multifaceted eyes moved, tracking Ji-eun's movements with an intelligence that suggested more than mere biological response. Something had changed, not just in her physical condition, but in the very understanding of what healing meant. The medical bay continued to hum. Machines blinked. Nanites worked their microscopic magic. And in the center of it all, an alien and a human doctor were rewriting the definition of medical intervention. Ji-eun knew this was more than a medical procedure. This was a first contact, a moment of connection that transcended biological differences. One cell at a time, one adaptation at a moment. They were building a bridge between two completely different forms of life, and neither would ever be the same again. Days passed in the quiet medical bay. The alien, whose name they learned was Rhea, slowly regained her strength. Her body, once broken, now seemed to pulse with a renewed energy that fascinated Dr. Yoon Ji-eun. Rhea's first words came unexpectedly. Not in her original language of clicks and vibrations, but in broken human speech. The translation systems had been working overtime, creating a rudimentary communication bridge. "Why, help me?" she asked, her voice a strange mixture of mechanical translation and raw emotion. Ji-un looked up from her medical charts. The question was simple, but it carried the weight of entire civilizations. On Ria's world, the weak were left behind. Survival was a brutal competition where only the strongest lived. Humans were different. Ji-un explained medical ethics using simple words. She spoke of humanitarian principles, of the belief that every life held value. Ria listened, her multifaceted eyes changing colors as she processed this alien concept. The medical bay became more than a healing space. It transformed into a classroom of understanding. Ria learned about human medical history, about doctors who traveled to remote places, about volunteers who fought diseases in challenging conditions, about the fundamental human belief in saving lives. Commander Park brought historical medical records, images of doctors working in war zones in poor countries helping people who weren't their own. Ria studied these with intense concentration. On my world, Ria explained, injured members are considered weak. They are left to die or eliminated, to preserve resources. Ji-un realized this was more than a medical recovery. This was a cultural exchange happening in the most intimate of spaces, between life and death, between two completely different species. The station's medical AI continued, monitoring Ria's recovery. Her cellular structure was healing in ways that defied previous scientific understanding. The nanites had not just repaired her body but had created new adaptive pathways. Ria's biological systems were changing. The trauma of her crash and subsequent healing had triggered something unexpected. Her body was evolving, learning, adapting. In real time, Ji-un discovered that Ria's species had incredible regenerative capabilities. But these were typically triggered only in extreme survival situations. The compassionate medical intervention was something entirely new to her biological programming. "Humans are strange," Ria commented one evening. "You spend resources to save those who cannot immediately contribute." Ji-un smiled. "That's what makes us human." The medical team began documenting everything. Each interaction, each biological change was a potential breakthrough. They were writing a new chapter in interspecies understanding. Ria started sharing stories about her world, a harsh planet where survival was the only law, where compassion was seen as a weakness, where individual strength meant everything. Her descriptions painted a picture of a civilization built on constant competition. Humans represented something completely different, a species that valued collective survival over individual dominance. As Ria's strength returned, her curiosity grew. She asked countless questions about human medical practices, about why doctors spent years training to save strangers, about the concept of humanitarian aid. The medical bay transformed. It was no longer just a healing space, but a place of profound cultural exchange. Each conversation, each shared moment, was breaking down barriers between two entirely different forms of intelligent life. Commander Park watched these interactions with growing fascination. This was diplomacy in its purest form, not through political negotiations, but through the simple act of saving a life. Ria's body continued to heal. But something more significant was happening. Her understanding of life, of survival, of what it meant to be a sentient being was fundamentally changing. The machines continued to blink. The medical scanners continued to record. And in the center of it all, a human doctor and an alien patient were rewriting the understanding of compassion, one moment at a time. Healing, they were discovering, was about more than just repairing physical damage. It was about understanding, about connection, about recognizing the value of life in all its complex, beautiful forms. The research station buzzed with an unusual energy. Ria, now mostly recovered, began sharing stories about her civilization. Her words painted a picture of a world very different from Earth, a place where survival was the only true law. Commander Park listened carefully. The translation systems worked overtime, converting Ria's complex language into human understanding. Her species, she explained, lived on a harsh planet where resources were scarce and competition was brutal. We do not understand compassion, Rhea said, her multicolored eyes shifting with each word. In my world, weak members are eliminated. Strong individuals survive. Dr. Yoon sat nearby, her medical pad recording every detail. Each word was a window into an entirely different cultural perspective. The human team realized they were experiencing something unprecedented, a direct cultural exchange with an alien civilization. Rhea described her society's survival mechanisms. Newborns were tested immediately. Those showing any physical weakness were removed from the population. Medical resources were reserved only for those who could contribute immediately to collective survival. Your approach makes no logical sense, she told Ji-un one evening. Humans spend enormous resources saving individuals who cannot immediately work or fight. Ji-un explained humanitarian principles. She showed Rhea documentation of medical missions, of doctors who traveled to remote areas, of complex medical treatments developed to save lives that might be considered unproductive by strict survival standards. The station's cultural research team became increasingly involved. They saw an opportunity to understand an alien perspective on survival, cooperation, and social structures. Each conversation with Rhea was carefully documented, analyzed and studied. Commander Park recognized the diplomatic potential. This wasn't just a medical recovery. This was a potential breakthrough in interspecies understanding. Rhea began to challenge her own cultural programming. The more she learned about human medical ethics, the more her perspective shifted. She saw something she had never considered before. Strength could exist in compassion, not just physical power. The medical bay became a classroom of cultural exchange. Rhea learned about human history, about medical pioneers who risked their lives to save others, about humanitarian efforts, about the concept of universal human rights. Her biological responses were fascinating. The station's advanced scanners showed her neural pathways changing. She wasn't just learning, she was fundamentally restructuring her understanding of survival and social cooperation. On my world, Rhea explained, individual survival is everything. Here, I see something different. Humans protect the weak. You invest in those who cannot immediately protect themselves. Ji-un shared stories of human medical history. She told Rhea about doctors who developed vaccines, about medical researchers who spent decades fighting diseases that might never personally affect them. Each story was a lesson in collective human survival. The translation systems worked constantly. Complex alien concepts were converted into human language, creating a bridge of understanding that went far beyond simple communication. Commander Park watched these interactions with growing excitement. This was diplomacy in its purest form, not through political negotiations but through genuine cultural understanding. Rhea's perspective began to change. She started seeing human behavior not as weakness, but as a different kind of strength. A strength that came from cooperation, from protecting the most vulnerable members of society. The research station became more than a medical facility. It transformed into a place of profound cultural discovery. Each conversation challenged existing understanding of what intelligent life could be. Rhea's body continued to heal, but something more significant was happening. Her entire cultural understanding was being reconstructed. She was learning that survival wasn't just about individual power, but about collective support. As days passed, the line between patient and cultural ambassador blurred. Rhea was no longer just an alien being recovering from critical injuries. She had become a bridge between two entirely different civilizations. The machines continued to record. The translation systems continued to work. And in the center of it all, humans and an alien were discovering something profound. That understanding begins with listening, with compassion, with the willingness to see beyond one's own perspective. Somewhere between medical recovery and cultural exchange, something remarkable was happening. Two different forms of intelligent life were learning to communicate, to understand, to see the world through each other's eyes. The day of Rhea's departure arrived with unexpected emotion. Her spacecraft waited outside the research station, its sleek alien design a stark contrast against the mountain landscape. Dr. Yoon stood with Commander Park, watching the final preparations. Rhea was no longer the critically injured alien who had crashed weeks earlier. Her body had healed, but more importantly, her understanding of life had transformed completely. "I will tell my people about humans," she said, her translated words carrying a depth of meaning that went beyond simple communication. Her multicolored eyes reflected a complexity of emotion that would have been impossible weeks ago. The station's cultural research team had prepared extensive documentation. Every interaction, every medical breakthrough, every moment of cultural exchange would be part of her report. This was more than a medical mission. It was humanity's first true diplomatic contact with an alien civilization. Rhea's communication device contained volumes of information about human medical ethics, humanitarian efforts, and the fundamental human belief in the value of every life. She had become more than a patient. She was now an ambassador of understanding. Commander Park approached her. "What will you tell your people?" he asked. Rhea's response was careful and considered. "I will tell them that strength is not about eliminating the weak. Strength is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves." The words hung in the air, a profound statement that challenged everything her civilization believed about survival. Dr. Ji-un watched silently. She understood that this moment was bigger than a medical recovery. This was a cultural transformation happening in real time. One individual's perspective could change an entire civilization's understanding. The spacecraft systems began to activate. Complex alien technology hummed with energy, preparing for interstellar travel. Rhea turned to Ji-un, a gesture of respect that would have been impossible when she first arrived. "You saved more than my life," she said. "You showed me a different way of understanding survival." Station personnel gathered to witness the departure. Each of them knew they were part of something extraordinary. This wasn't just a medical mission or a scientific experiment. This was first contact in its purest form. Rhea's medical scans showed remarkable changes. The nanites that had saved her had done more than repair physical damage. They had created new neural pathways, new ways of processing information, new understanding of cooperation and compassion. The spacecraft's door began to close. Rhea took one last look at the humans who had saved her. Her multifaceted eyes captured every detail: the medical bay where she had been healed, the faces of those who had shown her an entirely new way of understanding life. Commander Park spoke, softly to Ji-un. "Do you think she'll make a difference?" Ji-un smiled. "One individual can change everything." The spacecraft lifted slowly, defying planetary gravity with its advanced technology. It rose against the mountain backdrop, a symbol of something more than just technological advancement. It carried with it a message of hope, of understanding, of a different approach to survival. Inside the research station, the medical team began cataloging their discoveries. Each piece of data was a potential breakthrough. They had done more than save an alien life. They had created a bridge between two completely different civilizations. Rhea's journey home would take months. But the real journey, the journey of understanding, had already begun. The machines continued to record. The medical scanners continued to analyze. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, an alien spacecraft carried with it a new perspective. A perspective learned from a human. Doctor's compassion. Humanity had taken its first true step towards understanding life beyond its own world. Not through weapons or competition, but through the simple, profound act of saving a life. As the spacecraft disappeared into the sky, Dr. Ji-un knew something fundamental had changed. Not just for Rhea, not just for her research station, but for the entire understanding of what it means to be an intelligent, compassionate being. One life, one moment, one extraordinary understanding.